Hello, Dotland. Okay. Me. It's Eve 2020, June 19th. I am Matterall here with some friends. We have some Eve news to go over. We'll take a look at what's going on in Nullsec. Seems to be a retreat happening. Imperium moving back into Fountain. Looks like Pureblind and Fade got too hot because Horde and NC were all over that place with Snuff. Or maybe they just finished menacing Snuff. And then we'll also talk about, what was the other thing we were going to talk about? Oh, Arya wanted to talk about females getting treated differently in EVE Online. That's not a third rail topic at all.
What? Yeah, we talked about that earlier, and I do have a hard stop soon, so you might have that conversation without me.
Okay, well, fire starter, then run.
And I have market stuff per usual.
Okay, well, let's get started with some... Oops. Let's get started with some EVE Online. Oh, I just hit a commercial. My God. You know what's wrong with the internet? Commercials.
Says the marketing guy.
Seriously, I used to rail against commercials all the time. I worked in an ad agency up until COVID. And one of the meetings was kind of funny because this person was super hyped up about the iPhone, and he was showing a client. Oops, let me get this off my head. 1 second. He was showing a client how cool the iPhone was, because if you use Safari on it and you hit this one button, it makes all the commercials disappear. And as soon as he said it to a client, an advertising client, he's like, oh, but you know, nobody uses that feature. So anyway, all right, let's get to EVE Online. Okay, actually, there's a message here, a welcome message. Has it always been there? Is this new? Just playing, folks. I will read that later. Most violent systems in EVE Online. In Empire Region, top spot belongs to Black Rise. Second is the Forge, and then Lone Trek. Pretty much around 2,000 each. 2,000 ships destroyed. Except the Forge had like 750 pods. That's a lot. In Nullsec, Yn's Mother, Ethereum Reach, and Delve. Now, Ethereum's been in the news quite a bit because Fire Coalition's going up against Horde and Fraternity, and that seems to be kind of going off. But 642 ships destroyed in the last 24 hours in that region. Ethereum Reach, Delve, always in the news. Nothing going on there. As far as the last 24 hours in systems for Nullsec, look at MailPass has HTAC EBQG, had 552 ships destroyed, and this is interesting, only 5 pods. I think that's curious. Nobody was podding. Must have been a gentleman's fight, or NPCs that don't pod just took out a ton of players. Who knows? We'll find out. And rounding out the third spot there, JTAC Z and Yn's Mother. That's where it looks like a fight happened with 268 ships destroyed there. Swinging our gaze to Lowsec, Nenamela in Black Rise, over 1,000 ships destroyed. And then Tama in second place, way below that, 329 ships. And then even further below, with 294 ships, is Flossiswin in Metropolis. And then high-sec systems, you have Jita, Niarja, and Eranon. Eraron is Verge Vendor in third place there with 273 ships destroyed. That's behind Niarja with 473 and Jita with 356, but 441 pods destroyed in Jita. Something's fishy here.
Araron is one of the Triglavian systems that went minor victory recently.
Right, but the pods destroyed in Jita, didn't we just see? So you have nullsec where only 5 pods are destroyed after 500 ships get blown up. That's odd. And then you have JITA where you have 441 pods destroyed, but you only had 356 ships destroyed. Something doesn't add up.
Maybe somebody's trying to get all the pods off of Undock.
Yeah. Wild. All right, let's go to Z Killboard. Have a look at that. Good old over 10 billion kill mail. Ooh, look, Black Desert remastered. One second. Spam calls.
Hello, Matterall residents. You're
Yes,
Matterall.
this
Are you a friend? Press 1. Would you like to be a friend? Press 2.
Yeah, exactly. The automated process. Would you like to be a friend of Matterall's? Okay, in looks like Great Wildlands, which is actually a really interesting region, the Great Wildlands. I don't think it has the same character it had before, but it's basically known as hunting grounds because there were no stations there, so there's no safety there. And now it's changed because citadels can be put anywhere so that people can make their own safety. But it used to be a lot more of open plains kind of place, which made sense with the title, The Great Wildlands. It was kind of hunting grounds. But Fraternity loses a Nix there to the Ivana Trading Federation. 25 billion, which is not unusual for a Nix. Siberian Squad in Tenerife's lose a jump freighter. A little over 12 billion. That's not unusual for a jump freighter. That system was JK TAC-Q. That was taken out by Thermodynamics. And in Hamatar and Eifer, I know that system. That's a good system. Lord of Worlds Alliance gets killed. They had a Nix there that was destroyed by We Form Volta.
Oh, Volta. Yeah.
We also have in Pure Blind, D2 TAC HOS, Satio is destroyed by New Corp Whodis. It's a good name. That's from New Phone Whodis, which is what you say to somebody you don't want to talk to when you say hello and you're trapped on the phone. That was wiped out by Pandemic Horde. That's Satio. That was a big fleet of over 100 ships. Taking that out in Pure Blind. So finally, we have a Tatara that's taken out in J Space, belonging to YARW, destroyed by Duckling System. Oh, and this is interesting because they're kind of in a bit of a fix here. The Sixth Empire was recently purged from the Imperium, we hear. And we'll have to find out more about that. Apparently, they had too many spies in it. Which is too bad. But they had a Rhea loss. That's a jump freighter. That was killed in Delve's headquarters of the system is 1DQ1. TAC A, and that was wiped out by Pandemic Legion. So one more J-Space kill. It's the same system that lost the Tatara before. This is the Fortizar, probably paired up, 2 structures together. You have a headquarters, and then you have a building complex or an engineering complex right next to it. So this is the same group, YARW, that was killed by Exiled from Hell. And that one came to about 17 billion, and the Tatara came to about 13 billion. Not extraordinary prices. And here you have a 10 billion ISK or 11 billion ISK Rorqual taken out that belonged to Legion of Exdeath. That was taken out Wicked Creek for TAC EFLU. That's a storied system in Wicked Creek. That was taken out by... It wouldn't drift if it were an armor super. It wouldn't drift if it were an armor super. Okay.
I get that joke.
I guess because what? Because it's heavier? Because it's...
Because the mass of the ship becomes larger when you put plates on it.
But I was trying to get at the other side of that. What does drift? Does anything drift? No.
If you don't use your emergency brake, sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I thought the emergency brake is what lets you drift. No.
Yeah. Well, it's I guess the shield, the shield supers are lighter. All right, that's it for the kills. Yeah, the other ones are Brothers Tango. We talked about that yesterday. All right. Well, there's a few things that seem to be going on. We'll go back to the map, see if we can discuss, or I can turn on the game and use the map in there. But let's look at Universe. So up here in, I don't know if you could see this, Cloud Ring, Outer Ring, Pureblind, Placid. It's more Cloud Ring, Placid, and Cloud Ring, Pureblind, and Placid. See if I can get that out right. Those areas are where the northern powers of PandaFam, that's Horde, NC Dot, Pandemic Legion, are colliding with the Imperium, that's Goon Swarm, Bastion, TNT, and other groups, and the Initiative especially, because the Initiative are the group that live furthest north. They live in Fountain, and they were basically fighting in those areas. But recently, there's been a retreat by the Initiative. They're packing it up and moving back. I don't know if that's due to pressure or if a campaign has come to a natural end. I think the information that I'm getting is that people are celebrating this as a defeat on the northern side, but we'll have to ask Initiative what they're doing here. But they're moving back into Fountain to one of the Fountain forward systems. And by forward system, you see that red dot on the right there. That's J5A, and that's on the border of Cloud Ring. So there's a keep star in that system. That system's always been an important system because border systems generally are important, especially now because super capitals and capitals can all take gates now. So these systems are even more important because what this allows you to do is jump one jump through to BTAC D, and now you have the jump range from Cloud Ring, and you can pretty much hit. Actually, let's see. I can light this up so you can see it. If you right-click on any system in this, you can go to jump range, and we'll just do super capitals, all systems. And then if you come back to the Cloud Ring and hit the map again, it'll highlight the systems here. So those are all the areas that are circled in black that you can jump to from BTAC D. So again, you're in J5A in Fountain, which is your forward operating, border system. You have a keep star there with all your supers. You jump one jump in to Cloud Ring, and you can hit this entire range.
I have to object this entire line of discussion. I mean, obviously, Imperium is just doing a Satoya over there. Occasionally, we like to do these things. Anything you may have heard on a fireside, remember, firesides are intellectual property of the Imperium, unless you have an NDA.
Oh, oops. Well, I didn't hear any of the firesides, but I do intend to listen to them all. I just rediscovered them. And I intend to listen to them from January on up to now. So we'll see how that goes. Hey, thanks for the raid there. It's Go Jess. Thank you for raiding 50 guys. Welcome. We're talking about EVE Online. And
she's one of Malro's people. She's one of the directors.
Cool. It looks like she wears sunglasses. Very cool. We're talking about EVE Online. We're talking about some of the conflicts going on in the Fountain area between the Imperium and Pandemic, NC, Horde, take your pick, and Snuff, actually. Snuff's gotten involved in this. But I wanted to point out that if you're in JTAC A, remember we talked about the jump range? You don't have any power projection into Cloud Ring at all. Do you have some into Outer Ring? Yeah, you have it into Outer Ring, which nobody wants because I think that's NPC space. But you don't have it into Cloud Ring. You have to actually jump through that system. Here's the jump. You see that purple line? I can jump in. Yeah, that purple line gets you all the way up here, and now you have access to Cloud Ring. But until you make that jump, you don't have access to it. So that's why that system is really important. Even more important now that supers can take gates. So why don't you tell us about what's going on, Arya? You might know a little something. What's the idea? I didn't listen to the fireside. I should, and I will. But did you listen to it? What happened?
Well, for all you cheaters who have listened to our fireside, you're not allowed to do that. The Imperium is pulling back and consolidating. So we had a beautiful Jeff deployment, and we did the Jeff deployment early in the year in Venal. It was a lot of fun. We had another Jeff deployment, and we lost a lot of ships, which I think was fun for everyone. But we are now pulling back and not overextending, and we're going to pull back in the fountain and see what happens next as politics unfolds.
Were you fighting on two different fronts up there? Were you fighting low-sec fights against Snuff and also fighting in Outer Ring and nullsec, or was that all one front?
It was one major deployment. We had staged up in Cloud Ring, the Jeff Sig, and a lot of people came to play. And of course, we went to low-sec. You could almost consider low-sec two fronts. It's kind of alien to nullsecers. So that was a lot of fun for a little while, but we are just going to pull back now.
So, okay, so you're saying that it was basically, I mean, what was going on with Snuff? Like, why were you guys fighting Snuff? Snuff used to be part of the Imperium.
I don't understand. I mean, isn't Snuff this evil group that plagues low-sec? I think we were helping all of low-sec by getting rid of this evil organization, Snuffed, by destroying their structures.
So the answers with no answers in them. Somebody else help me out here.
Sorry, I'm channeling the Matani right now.
Yeah, I know. Saying a lot of words. I'm trying to find some meaning in those words. But for
Hold on, and we're going to twist the knife. There we go.
Yes, with heart pulsing wounds or something like that. I forget what it's called. Chest beating wounds, chest sucking wounds. That's what it was. Well, anyway, there was some kind of a problem. Okay, Snuff was part of the Imperium at one time, but they really were just using the Imperium to get some ratting rights, basically, in Aquarius. They had alt corps there that were making money. Why not? Everybody else is making money that way. It's easy money. Why wouldn't we do that? And so for about a year and a half, Snuff was part of the Imperium. And at a certain point, they decided just to break off. Now, here's the interesting thing. Snuff has always been very friendly with the Initiative. And the Initiative actually keeps a distance from the proper Imperium to some degree. They're very much allied. They're very much blue. But they have had differences of opinion, especially when it came to Sword Dragon up north. Well, Sword Dragon in the person, because that's a person, but basically Dead Coalition, they completely disagreed on how to handle that. And Initiative was furious at Goonswarm for signing a treaty to stop all progress into the north. This was a year and a half ago. And I think they... even before that, the Initiative had kind of been having their own identity. They kind of have their own, they have their cake and they can eat it too, because they are part of the larger coalition of Imperium, but they're not really obligated in the same way that a TNT might be. Is that fair to say, Araya?
I'm sorry, I was reading chat.
Initiative.
Were you saying something?
Initiative as I'm glad you pay attention when I'm talking. Initiative.
We have such a nice voice.
I know.
It's mellowing.
People
it just
fall asleep.
Relaxes me. I start falling asleep. Yep.
So tell me about.
You need to ask a question like Caleb.
Yeah.
Be like, Araya, why is this happening?
Let me go back and bring you up to speed. TNT is part of the Imperium, right?
Yes, we've been a member of the Imperium since before the Imperium was formed.
Long time ago. Part of the CFC, actually. And you've always been integrated. There's really no daylight between a group like TNT and the Imperium and Goonswarm, right? You guys are on the same page most of the time, or almost all the time.
Pretty much. Culturally, we're a little different, but I'd say the upper echelon of both alliances get along very well together. So it's not just a alliance in game, but it's also friendships.
I see. So it's okay. But if Goonswarm wants to do a thing, TNT's on board, like no doubt. Right?
Right. Yeah. Typically, I mean, there's channels where those things get discussed. So if there's any type of dissenting opinions, and that happens in any organization, one person has an idea, not everyone is on board 100%, but that gets hashed out. But from a public standpoint, when Imperium does something, usually it's a concerted effort in terms of both groups on the same page.
Okay. So now we turn to Initiative. Is Initiative like TNT? Is the relationship the same?
I think Initiative is a little different. They're doing the thing a CO2 tried to do, but the difference is Initiative communicates really well, where CO2 and Imperium historically did not have a good line of communication. They want to be independent. They do their own thing, but they're also integrated. There's a lot of channels we share together, and the groups are open. So like I can see Initiatives, FCs and groups, and there's there's a positive communication there. It's thinking back on the CO2 example, because you might think Initiative is a little bit like CO2 was back in the day, trying to do their own thing. CO2 was a very different relationship with Imperium. Yeah. It was very toxic. It was very difficult to deal with their leadership.
Yeah, carving out their own identity and being taken. And I want to say this in the way that it's seen by other players, not necessarily how I see it, but being taken seriously as better PvPers, as higher grade combatants. And capable of doing things on their own without the entire group because they're big enough and they have enough experienced players. That was the motif for CO2, and that appears to be the same with the Initiative. That's the having your cake and eating it too. You have an independent reputation, yet you're part of this larger organization that other groups kind of get lost in. So, and that might be because of tighter relationships between TNT and Bastion and Goonswarm and whoever else is there, that the Initiative don't really foster as much. Like, I don't know if Sister Bliss and, the leadership of Goonswarm talk all the time and are close or vacation together or whatever. But the point is, it's a different type of relationship. So that is the Initiative. Now, the Initiative sits up in Fountain, which we'll look at here. And that's their space. I think they shared it with Bastion. And they project north into Cloud Ring and Fade, which are far up here. And this gives them a ton of content because they can reach up into what used to be Dead Coalition space, but is now just kind of diversified northern small alliances. So the difference is that Snuff used to work with Initiative quite a bit. They were very friendly. They would call each other for help to do a thing. And so the Snuff actually joined the Imperium at one point for about a year, and they did it to make some money in the south in Quarius, but they also did it because it gave them some leverage with the Initiative, allowed them to take on bigger risks because they could get backed up if they needed to. And so it is interesting now, fast forward to today, where you have the Imperium attacking really some of the structures that belong to Snuff. I'm not sure why they're attacking their old ally. But the thing that Arya was joking about, and he had to leave, was that, well, nobody likes Snuff, right? Isn't Snuff the big bully of Lowsec? Well, we're just helping out Lowsec groups by taking out Snuff and destroying their structures and that sort of stuff. But Snuff resides here in Blackrise. That's a little bit lower than Purblind and Fade, but it's kind of generally the same area. You can see here's Purblind. And here's Blackrise. So they're not far from each other. And then here's Fade up here as you go further north. So I guess that was all one front, but with two like sub areas. One was lower in Lowsec and Blackrise, and the other one was Purblind and Fade up there. Those are the areas where there have been a lot of fights happening. between Horde, Goonswarm, these two empires, coalitions coming together and colliding. And what they've decided to do is pull way back here to Fountain and to J5. So they still can project into the area, but they're kind of more on home turf. It seems to me that it is being celebrated as kind of a pushback. The Imperium couldn't really handle being up there. They were losing too many fights. There was a lot of draws though that I saw on the boards, but maybe they just had a change of strategy or something. Maybe it wasn't being defeated, but just wanted to reassess how they were going about this, and they made some decisions and they pulled back. But I do know that the North sees that as kind of a move that they were forced into rather than elected to do. So look for more conflict in this area. Maybe it gets closer to Fountain. Maybe they actually go into Fountain and start, jumping into there and destroying things in Fountain proper. But that's much different than fighting in Cloud Ring or Fade. So we'll see what happens. Yeah, so let me go into the notes here with Elimination. Says we have our own doctrines, fleets, comps, ops. I think he's from Initiative, but I'm just guessing. So yeah, that makes sense. There's a separation of culture, and there's a separation also of military strategy and different alliances. Normally a coalition will have all of the same doctrines so that when they fleet up together, they're all uniform, which has been the staple of EVE Online for years and years and years, which is to be as uniform as possible in order to execute as evenly as possible. But Initiative has its own plans, has its own doctrines, which means that they have different tactics. They take advantage of different opportunities. Okay, Fonsway Spot, how are you guys?
Just hanging out while you talk about all these things that aren't relevant to me.
Yeah, when we talk Triglavians, that's what I hear from like Killer B and everybody else. They're like,
yeah,
nobody wants to hear about Triglavians. They want to know what we're doing. All right.
Everybody's got the thing. I don't want to dog this other content. It's just not relevant to me.
Just not your thing. Yeah.
But I'm here and I'm listening. I'm absorbing because I want to know how all this stuff works. It's that's why I said okay. So let me rephrase. I'm hanging out and absorbing while you talk about these things that I'm not directly involved in, so that I can learn about them. How about that?
Okay, good. I'm glad you're here. I was saying hello anyway. So here's something from Thrill Jimmer, let's call it. He says, I asked Pando, so Pando is Pandorolica, he's the lead FC for the Initiative, and he said, when Snuff disbanded, they sold Initiative a bunch of moons, and when they reformed, that is when Snuff reformed, because they did disband for a while, Snuff started attacking the moons they sold in it. And so that's what the conflict is about. Thank you. Well, it's not surprising if true. Snuff kind of does one thing one day and changes and does another thing the next. So they're, again, always just looking to fight things. All right, that's what's going on there. We'll look for more news. We'll listen to the fireside chat and see if there's more information there. But I think this weekend is going to be a big weekend for news. You're going to see a lot of stuff changing. We shall see how it goes. Question from Nick, does Snuff have the same leadership after reforming, or is it a different organization? To my knowledge, it's the same group. So they basically, I'm pretty sure they have the same FCs. I don't know if he's there. I've heard he is, but I haven't confirmed that yet. Yeah, so if Elimination here says, I saw High the other day, then it is the same group. He is the main leader of Snuff. That's High Want To. So we'll see. All right, Bard Ghost, Lichgrave, how are you guys doing?
Oh, God, sorry, I just jumped in.
That's what we're here for. It's Friday. It's totally casual.
Yeah.
Markets are looking
Not
interesting.
good.
I'm trying to get myself back to generate now, so I can tell you, because Eve Marketer is down yet again. So,
Oh, okay.
but one of the things that I've been noticing, Python C-type, multi-spectrum shield hardeners, I guess we're calling them now, taking a massive dive over the course of the past few months, even with the nerfs to the shield resistances.
Ah, you're thinking small.
I am thinking small.
No, I'm saying the Python C-type is one example. Look at all Dead Space modules. The A-types were
Yeah.
$1.5 billion. Now they're like
Mhm.
700 mil.
Yeah, Dead Space modules, man. I don't know what's going on.
They got nerfed recently, didn't they?
Well, yeah,
Uh,
but we would
we'll
assume so. So one of the things is that, like, so when something is nerfed, right? Usually the Dead Space modules go up in value because it's like, yes, they've been brought down a notch, but at the same time,
They're
they're
still the
basically
highest.
what used to be the standard, right?
Right.
So it's really weird because
Yeah. So we would expect
they're
that
still
since there
losing.
was a nerf, that even though all the Dead Space modules and faction modules were effectively cut in terms of resistances, that just makes it even more critical to have the Dead Space modules.
Yeah, but it seems to be the opposite. There seems to be this massive trend of
Yeah.
deflation, and it's not just Dead Space modules. If you look at just about anything, it's been dropping in price. Hell, Plex. I mean, you know, so it's just this really massive deflation that's happening throughout the game world. It's really weird, it's fantastic and it's terrible in two scenarios, or in two ways. The good way is that means everybody's ISK goes further, right? And that's always awesome. But on the other hand, that also means that the perceived value of things is declining, and so people feel like what they're doing is not worth as much, even though it technically should still be.
Well, my suspicion is that whatever activities were going on that were demanding these modules has gone away. So we know that Invasion Chapter 2 and 1 and 2 was a lot of farming, like a lot of
Yeah,
farming.
it
People
was.
were just running this stuff all day long. And now Chapter 3 is an entirely different concept. So it's not, people aren't really farming anymore. There's the emerging conduits don't work the same way. The minor conduits don't work the same way. All this stuff. It's just a different world. So I believe that Invasions, and if you actually look, I don't know how much you can get a year's worth of history, so we can see the Chapter 2 effect on the high-end modules. And I strongly believe that Invasions were the reason why these things spiked over the course of a year and a half.
I mean, I would be thinking that too, but when you look at it, like February is when the dip really started to happen to the multi-spectrum hardeners. But if you look at which is like the kind of like the mainstay, things didn't really start going chaotic until March. So there's like this month of just inconsistency there. So I mean, maybe it could just be because of the Gila. There was still that dip in the beginning of February for the Gila, so I mean, maybe. But it all starts in February, really. So it's a really interesting thing. Mm-hmm.
Let's have a look at that, actually.
I'm getting into Jetta right now. So
There, my settings changed, but now that's fixed. So now I can look at the market a bit better. All right, I was just looking at the multi-spectrums, and yeah, there's definitely a slide. They slide in different ways. So this one slides since you were probably saying February, right? Let's see.
It was the end of mid January is when it started dropping, and it's not just the shield hardeners. Look at shield boosters. Look at like pretty much anything related to tank and potentially anything else high end. So it's just armor resist, armor repairs, shield resist, shield repairs, all of these things. Mid January, early February, these things started tanking.
And what do you think, Fonsway? Why do you think they tanked?
Well, there was the, like I said, there was the invasion effect, and I honestly I think that if we can look at Plex, I'm not sure when that lines up with everything else, but I believe there were just overall ecosystem changes during that time.
Plex has been dropping since July, but no, there was no indicator in February. If anything, the indicator was March for Plex.
Yeah, let's look at Plex. Toot, toot.
Yeah, March was the indicator for Plex. So February didn't have anything to do.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened in January or February, but something happened in January or February, and all these things started tanking completely.
Yeah.
I guess we could look back through dev blogs and patch notes and see like what the changes were around then, but I'm lazy at the moment.
Well, the changes, it's not always just changes. Sometimes it's just announcements of changes to come, and people make reactions based on things to come. So, but any announcements that were made, any changes that were made to the game, we'll have to see.
I wonder, yeah, so one of the things is, like, I know wormholers, we generally tend to use pretty insane fits when we go fight. And if I remember February, even just a little bit, that reminds me of Izuki and his guys fighting Inner Hell and them. So I don't know, maybe some Doctrine fit just because they lost. So maybe some Doctrine fit just kind of got dropped. That would explain the drop in some of these DED modules. But maybe that's part of it.
I think usually it's bigger changes than that. When you see a systemic drop, you might see jumps and stuff. Like, let's go back to the piths or whatever. You might see a systemic.
If you look at the full 365 and you zoom accordingly, then you can really see like a sharp drop at the like mid to late January.
That might be a shift in doctrines, shift in popularity to something either good or bad. You can see these
across the board.
Yeah, but when you see the slumps, these long slumps like this, that's a systemic change, I think. And this to me looks almost like a shift in Triglavian meta, because I think the Triglavian setups, like what people are using to fight the Triglavian stuff, has a lot to do with modules and stuff. Modules and ships.
It's really interesting. So looking at the Centum C-type energized adaptive, so the C-type energized adaptives just on their own, like, yeah, they have some ups and downs, but like pretty consistently in February they all seem to take this dip. Except for
if you look at the A-type EANMs were anywhere from 900 to 1.1 bill at their peak. Now they're like 500 to 700.
Yeah, and February seems to be the consistent where they start taking a hard dip. So it's really interesting because of that.
But it really is tank modules. So, for instance, like Dead Space prop mods did not really drop at all. Those are still effectively the same price.
Yeah, but it's very strange also because, like, if you look at faction items, they don't change at all in February. Like Shadow Serpentis is the same. If anything, they've dropped in price.
That's why I feel it's something related to tank. Something that was either the demand dropped, the supply grew. One of those two things happened around January, and it's specifically with regard to tank.
Yeah,
I'm trying to keep up with you guys on what you're talking about. What modules, so I can show visuals to it.
The A-type energized adaptive nanos.
Yeah, and there's three different. So the thing about armor is that the armor repairs and the armor resist mods are identical to each other with some small exceptions, whereas the shields ones are all unique. So those are a little weird. So like you have the Centum, Corellum, and Corpum resist modules, and those are all literally identical to each other. And then you have the Centum and Corpum armor repairs, which are identical to each other, and the Corellums are a little bit worse. But the fact that you have multiple modules that are identically statted but have different sources is interesting because they usually line up, but there's always a little bit of variation.
You're talking about shield amps, right?
Yeah, so the shield amplifiers are the passive resist modules. The hardeners are the active resist modules.
Right.
I don't think that the difference between those is that for armor, the Omni tank, the Omni resist mod is passive, and for shield, the Omni resist mod is active. So those are going to be the ones you see the differences on. The specific passive shield hardeners didn't really see a whole lot of use.
Okay. What else is notable? that jump that I talked about the other day with the what's it called? Balgorn. It's hard to spell this one, but it's BHAL.
Yeah, BHAAL.
AAL. I always put two L's instead of two A's.
Yeah, it's a mythical creature. It's not an invented word for Eve.
Yeah. I noticed that spike, but it was only a 5-day spike. It already corrected itself, so maybe people saw that spike and said, "Oh, it's time to sell these blueprints or ships." So.
Don't Balgorns come from Goon Space?
Yep.
Yes.
That's why they're.
That's why they're cheap.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. But it's really interesting though, because
being pirate battleships, the true cost of them is the print. The pirate ships use very few minerals, and that's all that they use. So the print is always the bulk of the price of pirate ships.
Yeah, so we'll be looking at all the pirate battleships, at least the mainstay, right? The Vindicator, the Macarial, the Nestor. They all seem to be taking a dip over the course of the past 2 weeks. So
yeah, I've noticed that too. At the very end here, you can see there's a little bit of a dip.
Yeah.
Not
it's
the Nightmare,
really
but that's Shield. See, I thought Balgorn was unusual.
Deadly Avenger says that the capital changes had an impact on the demand for tank modules as well.
That's true. Actually, you know what? That actually is true, because looking at the February patch notes, that's when high-angle weapons got changed. So, yeah. I mean, that could have definitely been something.
Oh, well, mystery solved. Wrap us, get us back there and summarize what it was that changed and why.
Well, there have been capital changes for a while now. Surgical Strike was the most recent one, but the high-angle weapons were removed entirely from Titans around that time.
Which means, I mean, why would that that lowers the need for a strong tank on a dreadnought, for instance, or a carrier, for instance? Or
I think it means it removes the people were using those ships less, therefore there was less demand for the fittings.
Oh, so you think the ships that had those things, the ships that were nerfed, are no longer used as much, therefore they don't need the defenses as much. I wonder if it's...
Yeah. Well, I don't think that alone, I don't think that Titans alone, are going to be enough of a change to cause this kind of a dip in the resistance. Because the tank, the shield boosters and the armor repairs, those aren't used on Titans. Those are sub-capital modules. And those tanked with everything else.
Right. All right,
yeah,
cool.
I mean, this could... So what I'm just guessing, looking at the January patch notes, the February patch notes, and the most recent changes, right, to armor, is there's just been massive changes to shields since January into February into today.
Mm-hmm.
So January was the shield booster tier side, and then February was the Nirvana implant set as well. We had that come in, and then the shield rework with the reduction in damage mitigation. So, I mean, this could just be a cascading effect in the market. There's just no trust in shield modules, or in just resistance and hull modules in general.
But they got the advantage of implants for the pilot to enhance their shield defensibility.
Yeah, one of the interesting things about economics is that one of the most important things to people to say that, oh yeah, this is a great economy, is stability, and we've had very little of that, and these huge changes, fluctuating changes coming to shields, even though it may be positive in some ways or negative in others, it's still instability that people don't like, and that can be just causing prices to dip really hard.
Well, interesting. What else is in there? Let's go looking around for things. I did want to check if Hypernet took any kind of a price increase or drop, because there was a big sale on it.
There wasn't a spike, yeah, for the Hypernet cores.
Let's
I think
go.
that we can show that in the...
Well, hypercores are a market staple. I define... So you have injectors, extractors, certs, and plex, and hypercores are added to that. Basically, these are all... The items that I listed are items that are inherently linked to plex. They're only obtainable via plex. So they're going to be linked to plex. And if you line up the graphs for injectors, extractors, certs, and plex, then you'll find that they're pretty much in lockstep. And for maybe a couple days or a week or two here and there will be a small amount of deviation, and that's where people make a lot of money. But for the most part, those graphs line up almost identically.
Yeah, hypercores have been notably exceptional though, because they've just been losing value ever since their introduction. But like, yeah, we had the HyperNet event, and yeah, you can see that for the first time ever, the hypercores actually gained value from 280,000 up to 300,000, a little bit, and they've been kind of fluctuating between that 200 to 300,000 ever since, or that I think that's 2.8.
Yeah, let's look at the. Well, you can see it did have a couple.
I find that using the 20-day moving average is like the best way to get bad data.
That's not.
It's again, it's longer trend lines. If you look at the that's the longer trend, which is that hypercores are going down generally because it's just not as popular as it was before. If you don't have a hypercore, you can't sell anything on that market. But when it first opened up, look at the volume of hypercores. That was upwards of 1.3 million hypercores. And,
so there's also a 30-day moving average that you can't see here, and that 30-day moving average is the estimated value of an item. The overall, the glow, like when you hover over an item and it says estimated value, like whatever it shows you in Cargo, that is a once per week on Wednesday updated value. That
on Wednesday
chops off. Yeah, every Wednesday they update it, and so it takes another week's worth of data, but it is in fact a 30-day average. So they drop off a week and add a week, drop off a week and add a week, but it's always looking at 4 weeks. So there's so in the graph in the market you can see the 5-day, the 20-day, and if you look at that value and you track it yourself, the estimated value for the whole game is a 30-day.
That's a good thing.
The 20 and the 30 are very low resolution numbers.
Low resolution, in other words, that they take they move in straighter lines than your 5-day average, which is jumping up and down constantly. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. So if you have like super historical data, then you can look at like those larger, samples and maybe get something out of it. But if you're trying to operate in the market directly, then you really want the most up-to-date data possible.
Yeah. So ByteFlux here says it's actually the 30-day mean, not the average, but CCP keeps calling it the average.
Well, they call it estimated. Yeah. They don't call it, they say estimated value. They don't tell you what it is.
But the key point here is that every week it updates. So if you have a multi-spectrum and vulnerability field or whatever, and it's worth on the market $2 million per item, that every Wednesday it's double checking with the market to see where that mean or average is, and then it adjusts. So the next week it might actually have gone up to 2.2 million per unit. They check it on Wednesday. And that's important because some people are able to manipulate that. There's Rebel, our friend Rebel. Some people are able to manipulate the market. They do it on the transition between Wednesday and Thursday, or the other way around, Tuesday to Wednesday. I don't know how to do it. I don't do it, but you can play around with that. If you can corner a market, you can jack the price up really high on an item on, say, Tuesday night, then really high, and then the average goes up on Wednesday, and then you liquidate all your stuff on Thursday, and you get a little better price than you would have gotten had you sold everything on Tuesday.
So there seems to be a disagreement in chat. Someone is saying that mean and average are not the same thing, but maybe there's some sort of technical definition that I don't know about. But as far as I understand, there are 3 statistical numbers you want to look at: mean, median, and mode. And from what I understand, mean is literally defined as the mathematical function of averaging. Add it all up, divide by the total. So as far as I understand, mean and average are the same. And then there's median and mode, which are valid data points to look at and are different than average.
Yeah, I think the median.
Go ahead. They are the same word. Average is used in mathematics, and mean is used in statistics, but they are both the same number. The same word. They mean
So that's
the same
add them
thing.
all up and divide by the group, and you get the average.
Yeah.
But the mean, that's the medium, right?
Yeah. So the,
Okay.
the
The
mean
mean
is the
is
average.
different.
The median is the center, and the mode is the most present number.
Yeah. The mean is what I'm thinking of, and that is the that little dot here
That
is
is the
mean.
mathematical average.
Yeah, well, look. Okay, well, my head's going to explode. I need to check with my 12-year-old son who knows this better than I do. Right now. But
Right.
but what you have here on this graph, this little dot is it's right here. It's listed as the
Median day price.
there it is, median day price, right? So the median.
So the median day price is literally take today's top value, today's bottom, today's top transaction, today's bottom transaction, and go in between.
Yeah.
So if someone makes a bad sale, like if someone sells something entirely too low or entirely too high on that day, even if it's one single transaction for one single unit, that day's median price is going to be completely out of whack.
Here's the range that you can see on the what they actually have a setting here for min max, right? So you can see. I'll take the Doshin channel off. Donshin. That stick that you see there is the range. The top of the stick is the highest price that was exchanged for the item, and the bottom is the lowest. And so where you see the dot, I believe, is where most of the transactions happen.
Yes.
So when you're looking at this, let me actually change to the 5-day.
Yep,
That's
that's how you tell whether most things are being transacted on standing sells or most things are being transacted on standing buys. If the dot is close to the top, then that means that most things are being transacted on a standing sell order.
Right. This is an anomaly, so it's not a good thing to show. Let's open this up a little bit. But you can start to see a pattern pretty easily when the dots are lower on the stick, the blue line is going to drop. When the dots are higher on the stick, it's going to start pulling up. If it pulls up over and over and over again, well, this is a bad example because it's constantly being pulled down. You see these dots are constantly pulling it down. Then over time, the 5-day average is going to turn into a very smooth 20-day average because generally speaking, all these dots are constantly under pulling it down.
I'm getting shouted at. They're using caps at me, Matterall. They're using caps.
Okay. Where's the caps? Let's deal with caps.
It says not correct. He says the median is the number in the middle of the group when the population is listed in numerical order.
Well, isn't that what we said? The medium sits between the top.
No,
and
there is a difference between that and what I said. I believe he's correct.
All right. Well, then you deserve the caps this time. But
I guess.
again, I got to check with my 12-year-old statistics master because this is all fresh in his head, and I haven't seen this in about 20 years, 30 years. All right. Well, let's get off this subject before we make a bigger fool of ourselves. Let's go to. Let's grab you picked up the stuff on the modules, the shields especially. Was there anything else? Let's look at the new stuff because I want to see how fast that's dropping in price. So Skybreaker, it is on the on sale.
Oh man, look at it. So go to Skybreaker and look at the not the chart but the table. It's really funny.
Okay, this is not going to show it because it's only been in the game for about 5 days. But it down here, you can look at the actual raw data. Wow, and it started out, I think, on the
one single unit for $1.5 billion, and then after that, bam, straight down to like very, very normal prices.
That's all that was sold. What the heck?
Yeah, it was on the first day when there were almost no sites spawning.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Someone managed to get one made, and whoever wanted to be the guy that said, "I have the first Skybreaker in the whole game," that guy bought it for $1.5 billion.
And that's a frigate. $1.5 billion for frigates, unheard of. That is.
But he had it first.
Yeah, 17 times its normal value or something.
Yeah, so he paid about 50 mil for the frigate and $1,450,000,000 for the ability to say that he had it before everybody else.
Oh, that's funny that way. Oh no, my text. Sorry guys, I was cutting you off there. All right. Yeah, I think the first one was killed hours later, so one of these first ones was killed like within 12 hours of its being created. I think they do that on purpose to kind of like, you can have the first one ever built and nobody will ever know it. They'll have to take your word for it. So what some people do, I think, is they'll buy it off the market and they'll go get it killed right away, and then it's in the books as the first one killed.
Yep. Yeah, I always say that a ship is only immortal once it reaches Z-kill.
Yeah. So Navy faction, let's look at the cruiser Navy faction.
Cruiser is the Stormbreaker.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it manually so I get used to it, because it should be under faction, right? Oh, it's not a precursor, is it?
No, it's not precursor.
Oh, it's a Navy.
Well, you see, so you can see that the Skybreaker is listed under faction Navy. So
it's under Navy, not
Navy
pirate faction. That makes sense.
Which is interesting.
Yeah. That is an interesting, because Triglavians are their own ship line. They're precursor ship lines. They're ancient civilizations equipment. So they have their own precursor designation. But
so originally, back when they first introduced, and I need to find the text to back this up. I know that I read it, but I don't have the post. When the precursor ships were first introduced, there was a CCP dev who said that they intend to flesh out the precursor line with other precursors, like not Triglavian precursors.
Yeah, because there are multiple ancient races in EVE Online. And to get you straight on that, everybody in this game, from drifters to everything, is all, its origin is Earth, human race, etc. And so when we went through the wormhole in New Eden and started colonizing everything, the wormhole closed and just about everybody died. But there was enough left over, enough humans to start to populate the place again very slowly. And some humans fizzled out, just like normal history. You have certain civilizations that peter out or just never make it. Others flourished, and we know them as empires now, like the Amarian Empire, the Galentes, and they started reconstituting space travel.
The Eve Gate closing is kind of what created the situation of the haves and the have-nots, the more powerful groups and the less powerful groups here. The Jove were the least technologically advanced at the time that New Eden was first populated, and because they were the least technologically advanced, they were all in cryosleep. So while everyone else had established their colonies and died out, the Jove were just traveling asleep, and they didn't take that hit. So while everyone else was knocked back to the Stone Age, they just set up shop as soon as they landed. So they got a massive head start.
Right. So the point is that even the Triglavians or the Drifters or the Jove, we all go back to the same human race. But in this new Eden, this new world, this new galaxy, some of the races disappeared for a long time or were not exposed to these empires that we see, that we belong to, right? As Capsuleers, we belong to this strata of civilizations. And those old civilizations that disappeared are called precursors. So those are the ones that make appearances in the lore and all that kind of stuff. So when people talk about aliens and all that sort of stuff, it's really aliens based off humans.
Yeah, so, Hilmar himself, as well as other CCP employees, have said repeatedly that EVE Online is the story of humans being shitty to humans.
Okay.
No aliens.
I think he meant players, but... So anyway, when they say precursors...
No, they meant like the lore, the story, that they have written for us, not the ones that the players are writing. It is the story of, people being shitty to people. So what that sets us up for is, and this is what we're trying to get to, is there's a distinction between precursor ships. The Triglavians are a type of precursor. There were going to be other precursors, like, what
what are they called? Telocans, whatever. And I won't go into the examples because it's just science fiction names. But the point is there were going to be other races of precursors, and that technology would come into the game. And I think what that was from a game development perspective is it gave developers space to bring in new types of weapons, new types of ships, which is what you saw with Triglavians. Totally new types of weaponry, had different characteristics, had worked different ways, and that's where they were going to develop different types of equipment to make gameplay more varied. But the lore has trapped the new ships into the Navy faction, because you can't have Edencom ships built by Upwell as alien technology, since these are the guys that, Upwell are the people that built all the structures. They're the ones that give Edencom, the police force, basically, the equipment. And so that's not an old civilization. That's like new Navy, new police officers, that kind of stuff. So that's all under Navy faction. All this to say,
the Vorton technology was developed by Upwell for structures, and they researched this technology and downsized it to ship, and provided this technology to Edencom and these ships. And Edencom commissioned a frigate, a cruiser, and a battleship based on this technology.
Right. So all this to say, you're looking for Triglavian stuff. It's going to be in the precursors section. You're looking for the new stuff. It's going to be in Navy faction. So that you look for Stormbringer, Skybreaker, and what's the baby?
Thunderchild is the battleship.
Yeah. So that's interesting. It's something to get your head around, because it's a little bit counterintuitive. The new stuff is not going to be all precursor. All right, that's good for markets. I always want to look at injectors, because I hear it's a good time to be selling injectors. That might have passed already, but for a while there, people were doing okay. Let's look at a graph so it can be visual.
It's still profitable. It's very small margin, but it exists.
The thing about this, are you familiar with? Is Bard Ghost in here? He was, right? Bard Ghost?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry. Yep.
It's all right. Can you tell us what farming is like farming skills, and are you familiar with that?
Yes. What do you want to know about it?
Is it something you don't want to talk about? Is it a secret? Is it a secret?
I've got no issue sharing.
Is it a good time to be a skill farmer?
At the moment, yes. Yeah.
Very much so.
I haven't checked it in the last couple of days, but as of the last major pull I did, it was 1.5 billion an account per month, which, yes, you can be if you do active stuff, but it's more a case of scaling it up, right, to 50, 60, 100 accounts, to the point that you can't make that in active play easily without some really high-end stuff.
Does that constitute your gameplay if you're a farmer? Is that like what you spend your time doing? Does it take that much time?
Not really. I didn't set mine up optimally originally, so it's taken more time than it should have. I'm slowly moving that into where it should be, which will lead me to doing the work mostly on like the first of each month or something, going from there every 30 days. And we'll be a couple hours a day, and that'll be it for the month.
Yeah, the idea is that you, if you spec out everything properly, then you train 1,944,000 skill points per character per 30 days, and that's your basic math. So that is 3.88 injectors per character per month. Then you add in the cost of extractors, cert training certificates, and Plex, and those are your costs. And then you take the injectors, and that's your profit, and you literally compare them against each other, and that's pretty much all it comes down to.
Yeah, and with Plex being extremely cheap right now, well, in historically,
yeah,
comparative,
it's the deeper your pockets are, the less often you have to go through the cycle. There's the train extract cycle could happen hand to mouth, as in once a month. You queue up the skills, train them, extract them at the end of the month, sell your stuff, whatever. But if you have particularly deep pockets, then you have a lot of certificates, you have a lot of plex, and you have a lot of extractors. And you just keep that stuff stocked up and you let the characters train. And you may not extract them every month. You may not sell your stock every month. You kind of just have your piles of these items and trade between them while also generating skill points. So if you can afford to go for several months without extracting and selling those injectors and just fuel your accounts off of your pile for 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, then you can wait for the opportune time to buy the stuff that goes in, and wait for the opportune time to sell the stuff that comes out.
Right, but you need that breathing room financially, so you can't put all your money in because you get desperate and need the money to come out.
Right.
Right.
So it's completely doable and profitable right now on a hand-to-mouth basis, meaning every single month you extract and sell. That's profitable right now. But it is not always. And in the times when it is not profitable, those with the deepest pockets can hold. They keep training those skill points, so they keep building it up, but they don't have to sell it when, they don't have to buy the stuff when it's expensive, and they don't have to sell the stuff when it's cheap.
Yeah, I wonder, by the way, you should never take Matterall advice on finance. Just saying. But I wonder, talking about it, if we get people hyped up about it and they end up investing a bunch of money into starting it up, and then the market kind of falls under for 3 or 4 months, and they realize their money is now trapped, and if they get out to get liquid with ISK, they're going to end up losing money. I think...
Yeah, that's likely too, because to be profiting now, you need to have set up a couple months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to do this, to execute this plan, in order to extract a single injector, you have to be at 5.5 million skill points on that character, because you can only extract down to 5 million minimum. So in order to set this up, you have to have a character that's already at effectively 7 million skill points to extract your 4 injectors for that month.
So Bard Ghost, this is something that you know about, whether you do it or you know people that do it. Most... Go ahead. You were saying
sorry, you finish.
What are most...
You cannot confirm or deny.
Yeah. What are most people... I have a visual glitch there. You guys see that? See that line blinking?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Huh.
I've tried to photograph it for a bug report, and it doesn't photograph. It disappears when I... So
weird. Well, that's CCP.
Well, you have a Twitch VOD.
So yeah, CC,
please provide that.
Yeah, I guess I should submit that. Anyway, what's interesting to me is it doesn't matter if the market is up or down. You're not really selling the skill injectors when they're up or when they're down. That's not really what you're worried about. What you're worried about is the cost of creating the skill points and then the cost of selling and the relationship between those two. So if Plex prices are going down, or the multiple training certificates are going down, and the extractors are going down because Plex is going down, and your expenses to build the skill point injector go down, and there's a lag between those prices going down and how much the skill injector is going for sale, you're going to make money. It doesn't matter because you're really just looking at the margin between how much it costs you to make and how much you can sell.
If you're doing it on a month-to-month basis, that is the math. You're only looking at the difference between your costs and your profits for your 30 days.
But let's stick with that.
If you're doing it hand-to-mouth.
But let's stick with that. Yes, but let's stick with that right now. So that's it. So if the skill injector is selling for 700 million, or it's selling for 1.5 billion, that almost doesn't matter, because you just want that relationship between how much it costs you to make and how much it sells for. And I think what Fonsway is saying is, if you're able to build when things are cheap in the summertime, right? Plex is cheap, extractors are cheap, and you're able to get those skill points in and prepared as injectors, and you sit on that all summer long, all fall long or autumn, and then winter comes around and the need for injectors goes way up, and you sell at that point 6 months later, right? This is the longer term, or maybe a year, then you made even more money. And with this market, you actually can, and I'm not selling you on it, but you can actually make twice as much if you sit and hold for when you sell, because the price volatility is so much. I mean, look in this last year, we'll open up injectors. Look at the price difference between just a year ago, 1 billion, and today, which is like 700 million.
There is another aspect of this that is worth noting, and it is when and how you transact. I'm sorry, where and how you transact, my bad. So people that do their transactions in 4.4 are making a mistake.
JITO.
That is the most, JITO 4.4, because you're going to pay a lot of taxes on those transactions. This is what this is like the bread and butter of the Tranquility Trading Tower. Like, if you look where the injectors are and the extractors and stuff are moving, it's there. So that's one thing. The other is, if you drop your stuff on immediates, if you buy off of standing sells and you sell to standing buys, then you may end up losing money. You have to be the one putting up the standing orders. You have to put up the standing order, to buy all the stuff that you need, and you have to put up the standing sell order to sell your stuff. That is like how you maximize the profits on this.
Or you get a broker, somebody who's going to buy them at a certain price and not have to worry about any of that.
Or you could avoid the market entirely.
How do you sell Bard Ghost, or how do your friends sell?
I honestly just sell with sell orders every week, as long as I'm up on money. Well, sorry, it would be up on profits, right?
So here's the thing that you said that is very interesting to me. If you're doing this with 3 accounts, you might do it with the maximum of, if you don't want to progress, 9 characters, right? 3 per account times 3 is 9. But normally there's some characters you don't want to take skills out of because you want to, keep them.
Like your main. Yeah.
Like your main, yeah. So you do this with kind of like side characters that are over the lower threshold of 5 million skill points and whatever, or 5.5. So you're scraping off just a little bit. You're selling, I think you would sell, 1.5 injectors per account? Something like that. And
3 injectors.
3.88. Wow. 3.88 per character per month. 1,944,000 skill points in 30 days.
Per character, but you would need higher costs to get the second character training at the same time, because you'd have to. But okay.
It's actually cheaper. The additional characters cost a cert, which is 485 plex instead of Omega, which is 500 plex.
15% cheaper to get the second character training than the first. Okay. But so if you use 2 characters, did you say per character? So that's like 8 injectors?
So it's 140 some odd injectors per account per year.
So what is it, 31 days to do 4 injectors?
Yeah, roughly, something like that.
Just do it on a 31-day cycle.
I think it's like 30, 33. 30. Well, the thing is, you have to keep in mind that your account, like a Plex,
it's a
only
30-day
lasts you 30
cycle.
days. Yeah,
Yep,
Plex only
it's
lasts
always
you 30 days. Yep.
But you're not doing this month to month. I mean, you could just average it out.
I mean, if you
another way to do this is
come in, right. So that's where having the deep pockets comes in, because you can take those 4 days of punches, right? But yeah.
So here's the alternative to that. You can also, if those accounts are doing something profitable, that adds onto it and helps that buffer. So let's say you had 3 accounts that Matter was talking about, 3 accounts, 9 characters. You can take 1 character in each of those accounts, train them into an Ishtar, put 3 warp core stabs in, and orbit a button.
Well, let's
per hour.
What you're describing is the fact that, so I've described this before as skill farming is unbundling, because Omega is more than one product. You're purchasing, you're purchasing training as well as the Omega unlocks. You get the ability to run more than 1 account at a time. You get the ability to use all the Omega ships and modules. You also get the training. What if your character has all the skill points that you need, and you don't need to train it any further? So you can have a character that has the Omega unlocks that can run, multiple accounts at the same time, and you sell the skill point part of the Omega bundle.
All right. Not to get too confusing and too advanced about the strategies of this and the ins and outs. There's obviously a lot to it. One of the tools you can find belongs to Eve Mogul. This is Jeronica's website. And he has a skill point farming calculator. So you can do your calculations ahead of time. It's linked up to the market, so it'll bring in fresh numbers to help you do your calculations. But again, this has a lot of risk. This whole market has a lot of risk. If there's a downturn or an upturn in prices, your production costs may go higher than what you can sell injectors for, and now you're just losing money. So it inverts. So you need to be careful. But what I wanted to point to was something that Bardgo said. Doing 3 or 4 accounts isn't really worth the time. If you're going to do this, you want to scale huge. And how big is
I wouldn't say it's not worth the time. As long as you're making money, it's worth the time.
Yeah.
But it's
almost
not.
no time.
It's not the same amount of money as you could do with other stuff, right? It's what I mean. But sorry, what were you going to say as well, Matt?
Well, that's what I meant. It's like there's different ways to make money in EVE Online. You could play the game and make money doing missions. You could play the game fighting Triglavians, make some money there. You can go into wormholes. There's different ways to make money in EVE Online. Everything has a profitability path. But if you're going to spend a lot of time doing the calculations and sweating the ISK and all that other stuff, this may not be worth it. You might as well just go and fight Triglavians and make money that way. But if you, this thing, the thing about this that's special is that it can scale because if you're doing 3 or you're doing 30, it seems like it's almost the same amount of work. Or a little bit more because you're having to log in a lot more on different accounts, I suppose. Isn't that right?
It's once a month at the most. If you're doing it more than once a month, then you haven't lined your stuff up and you're doing it wrong. So one day every month you sit down, you log in a whole bunch of tunes, and you do your stuff. You know, you contract all of them or you deliver all of them, all the extractors and everything they're going to need. You go and you handle your stuff, and it's done. I personally, I run about 5 accounts that are all full. I have one character that trains and keeps the skill points, and all the other characters train and extract, but they don't lose skill points. They just sit at the same exact amount every month. They train the same 2 skills and extract the same 2 skills every month. So what I have is 14 characters with skill points that I'm happy with that are all Omega, and one character that continues to train. And I can use all of those Omegas for whatever I want. And one day a month, I have to go and deal with this.
So it's the same amount of work whether you're doing 3 or 30 or 300.
Pretty much. It's a few minutes per tune per month. It's literally log in, extract, transfer the injector, requeue skills, log out. That's the whole process.
Bardgos, what's your experience with it?
As I say, mine's not lined up quite right. You know, I did mess up, but it's being lined up is getting easier. It can be done in a couple hours if yours is small enough. And it doesn't exclude you from doing other stuff, right? You can still play in other ways. It kind of helps you fund that. So it's... I want to say the worst bit, but this is a lately thing. The worst bit seems to be the market actually putting stuff up. Since the broker fee changes, where you take a penalty for changing your listing, it's... you obviously can't one ISK. You don't want to fight people for it because you take a nice big several million hit to your place. So you just got to leave it and hope people don't snipe you, or if they do, you got to hope it sells and then.
Although now by advertising it and more people getting involved in this, you do ensure that people will get lower prices and snipe your order.
Yes, I know Nick says something in chat. I don't know if that's addressed to me or Sui or someone else.
He hates the crap coming out of my mouth.
Okay, so I agree with the two of you. I'm going to play middleman here. Yes, if you line it up to be the first of every month or something that is on a set schedule, it minimizes effort and makes it significantly easier. I wouldn't say you're doing it wrong. It makes it
so much
easier.
More work.
Yeah, exactly. But if that's what you're willing to do, that's what you're willing to do. That's fine. I'm not going to rail on someone for doing it.
But the
I'll explain what I mean by doing it wrong. It's like you get the same amount out for less work. You get the same injectors. You're clicking the same buttons. You're queuing the same skills. You're extracting the same stuff. All your actions are the same. I could do that in one day, or I could do that a whole bunch of different days, and and worry about it over the course of the month and have spreadsheets tracking times and weeks and days and all this stuff. Or I could get the exact same stuff done in one shot.
Yeah, you're all doing it wrong. I would keep your plexing on a 3rd-day cycle. I'd extract on any cycle I determine is a good day to extract. I would use basic calendar functionality, which I rely on all my meetings to let me know when I need to extract and when I need to plex, and let technology take it from there.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I'd also remember, you're not just, even if this had no profit, there's still value in this, because EVE Online is a game that benefits from multi-boxing. As much as I personally wish the PvE and things in the game did not cater to multi-boxing, that's not the reality. These characters, even if it's a complete wash, you skill extract and you get the same amount of money it is to fund this whole operation. Those are accounts that are now Omega, and you can do something. Maybe it's just Sino alts. Maybe it's Jump Freighter alts, and you're going to fund a war. When war happens in EVE, the people at Jump Freighters make a lot of money. Or maybe it's manufacturing. Maybe it's sitting in these nullsec sites in Ishtar. You'll
planetary
make additional
interaction
money.
Is a big one, right? People
if
use
you like PI and like clicking, go for it.
Well, if you set up the farm a certain way for balance rather than productivity, then you pick up less often. And these things really just accumulate goods that you could sell on the market while they're accumulating skill points. They're both passive income, so they kind of work together. But yeah, you do have to make the rounds.
You can even turn some of the characters into market traders and then just have them sit in hubs.
You can put one of the alts in Malro and do content with Malro.
That's how he does it. You could actually sell them for CSM votes, because that's exactly how people get 200, 300.
We're discussing a high functioning activity that is not for new players. You can't get someone who doesn't know anything about EVE Online, doesn't have accounts, doesn't have characters, doesn't have skill points, doesn't have ISK, and show up and start doing this. So to say that this is typical min-max attitude that is toxic to newer players is a garbage statement, because this isn't an activity for newer players. Now, if I do talk to newer players, then I will reward and support and share and help, and everything they do is right. Every single thing they do is right. Just get out there and do stuff.
Now, hold on, Fonsway. This is the second time you're getting you're going to get a lot more caps coming at you right now, because the second time you're making absolute statements, which are difficult in EVE Online, and here's why. A new player isn't a Bambi, yearling that's come into the forest. That's not new players in EVE Online. There are some guys that are financial executives coming into EVE Online. They have an idea of how to set something up. With a little bit of guidelines and some tutoring from a elder corp mate, they can get up on this fast. The question is, are most people going to jump into this thing? No, there's a huge amount of startup costs. And that's one of the limiting factors. That's your moat that keeps your castle from the invading forces. Basically, people who have a lot of money already can get into this, because you need to have characters, you need to have accounts. There's a lot of expenses involved. There's a lot of profit, but a lot of expenses. And that's why I was saying it's almost not what you sell the product for, it's its relationship to what the build cost was. And remember, the build cost and the item that you sell are not linked very tightly together. Sometimes Plex drops and the product that you're selling, the injector, stays kind of high for a while. This last Plex drop that we saw was fantastic for people who had injectors. Their build costs had come down, so the future injectors that they were going to make were going to be cheap, and the injectors they had on hand to sell were selling at prices that were equivalent to a month before. So they were selling higher. They hadn't actually dropped because Plex had dropped, and that was a good time for them. So I think the last few months have been very good for for skill farmers. But it is hard to get into, I agree with that, because of the startup costs. The knowledge is also a little bit arcane, and the best practices are also a little difficult to understand. But I just feel like new players in EVE Online, you can never underestimate who they are in real life.
And I just wanted to say something here. Let's be clear. This is nothing but helps new players. Nothing is more infuriating than a new player coming into the game and realizing that they have to wait an entire day to start playing the game. Or they can play the game that they currently have access to, make a little bit of ISK, grab an injector.
Well, I disagree with you in this respect. You're saying that you have injectors, which means there's a pool of skill points that new players can pick from, and therefore they can get up and running faster. Is that your contention?
Well, yeah. I mean, so in the old world of EVE, where we didn't have skill injectors, a player who Omega'd their account, two players who paid for their accounts, one played, one would be in the same skill point location. If the one who didn't play came in and still updated his queue, they would both be in the same location. But now the player who actually sits and plays can be further advanced into the game than the person who doesn't log in.
Well,
other than
here's my pushback on that, Lichgrave, is that you could always, this was interesting, but you could always buy a character off the Character Bazaar. A long time ago, CCP decided they would embrace selling your character to somebody else for ISK, not for money, but for ISK. And at that point, you had the same system set up. A new player comes into the game, looks around, and his friend tells him, you know what you need to get into? You need to get into this, and you need a pilot that can fly this. So they go to the Character Bazaar, and they look at the list, and they wait, and they look, and they shop. And eventually, a PvP character comes up with 40 million SP, and they're like, I'll buy that. I'll just buy some Plex, turn it into ISK. I'll pay for that character. And now I have the skill points I need to play that gameplay. That has been there for 10, 12 years. I think what's different now, and this is where the pushback is, the inflation that essentially this money comes from. I mean, I don't know how much Bard Ghost is making, right? I don't know how many votes he sold to CSA. How much
didn't sell votes.
What? I'm not saying it's a bad thing. That's totally legit.
No. And I'm not saying that as a defense. I'm saying that genuinely I didn't sell votes. I gave them to people that I thought deserved them.
Fantastic. I'm not even saying you're a skill farmer. I still think it's your friend that's doing this. But the point is, you take all that money that Bard Ghost is making, and there are people who are bigger than him, people who are smaller than him, but there is a lot of money being made here, and I think that's another economic destabilizing effect that basically dwarfs it. Overall, it's a crushing amount of wealth in players who know how to leverage this game against newer players that are trying to get up and running. They can't possibly compete with the amount of money that is on top of them from players who figured out the system. That's where I think it's not good for new players.
So my only counter, my counter to your statement, Matterall,
the pushback,
would be that the pushback is that you specifically stated that the player would go out to the Character Bazaar, buy some Plex. Well, buying Plex requires money. Now, some people don't want to put money into a game that they don't know yet that they might enjoy. So the ability for the player to go out and get the SP to test the game out in the areas that they want to, without having to put a monetary or any type of financial entry into the game, right? So they can just put the time in instead, right? Because maybe they value the money more. Who knows? I would argue that is in a way better because they don't have to put real world money into the game. They don't put skin into the game. They can just waste a few hours, make a few injectors, and maybe this thing isn't for me.
Yeah,
they can do it without interacting with the Character Bazaar at all, without having to put money.
If I have my way, I would pump the minimum requirement for extracting from 5 to something like 7 or 8. I would give all new players 5 million SP, and as long as you're under a certain amount, you can freely move those points as needed, so you can learn the game and figure out what you want to do. Just freely unassign and reassign SP until a certain point, just so players don't have to wait days to get skills to figure out if they like or don't like something. It allows to not punish them for saying, I put all my skills in mining, and 2 days later, I hate mining. I want to do something else.
I thought they rolled that out because people could use the characters as alts that could be more versatile.
Yeah,
So,
so
I mean,
there are.
If you're paying
there
for the
are a
account,
few-
you're paying for the account.
Cloaky
But
Camper
once you
one
get pressed for
day,
an SP, that's it.
Cloaky Camper one day, PI aficionado the next, industry guru the third day. Like you could constantly move those skill points around as needed.
So I like that concept. I do think it might require a little bit of restriction so it doesn't get abused, but we kind of have that ability currently with the buddy code alphas, because those start out, every brand new character that you create has about 385,000 skill points built in. Every account that you create with a buddy code gets the million. So if you want to try something out, like, I want to try out mining, I want to try out this, I want to try out that, then you can just spin up those new accounts, pay nothing for them, and try it out. But I do like that concept of maybe raising the minimum, allowing some sort of free reassignment. That I think that's potentially something that CCP might want to look at.
Because the worst thing you want to do on a new player is punishing them for making a decision they don't understand. And EVE is complicated enough that a day one, even if 1 week in, you may not know what you like or don't like in this game. And the answer is not, well, biomass the character and start over again. And go through a tutorial to get you free extractor or injector.
Right. All right.
Yeah, when you're under 5 mil, you can. So there is kind of that thing, because you don't take any of the hit. You extract 500,000 skill points and you inject 500,000 skill points when you're under the 5 mil. So if they gave you free extractors that were not able to be traded on the market for ISK, they just allow you to reallocate. I think that could be very useful for a new player.
To get around the Cloaky problem, right? That you mentioned real quick.
Yeah.
About people reallocating Cloaky. So to use the covert ops cloaking device, you need the skills and you need a minimum SP of 10 million SP. And you now have, very like other games, a minimal level that says, okay, you've exited the new player's amount of SP. You can now use this module.
All right, let's wrap up the economic talk. We want to move on because we have Killer B here, and I wanted to talk to him yesterday, but we got on to Providence for a while. But Killer B, if you're around, I heard you took some Lesheks in to work on some structures. Can you tell us what's going on?
Well, it's been going on for a while. Horde deployed to Pureblind in March, so it's been going on for 3 months. And Horde started hitting some init renter structures, they probably don't call themselves init renters. Basically, FXR, who are allied with init, who've been living in Pureblind, and they started hitting their stuff. And Horde got a bunch of fights out of that, and then Goons deployed, and then we deployed with NC, I think a month ago, a bit more than that maybe now. So it kind of turned into this, it's what it usually happens, right? Horde has a bunch of really amazing brawls, but on some of those brawls, they've been outnumbered because Goons have been forming and we were sitting in drones, so it was kind of hard for us to get over there to Pureblind from the other side of the map without having a bunch of notice. But a lot of those brawls happen very spontaneously, right? Some of those just appeared out of nowhere. It was like a flash form, and suddenly there was this big brawl going on. And so we decided to move over so we could respond quicker to, if Horde's being outnumbered or something like that. Unfortunately, usually what happens when we deploy somewhere, then everybody goes from, oh, this is just fun and content to oh, this is serious now. So a lot of the brawls stopped happening the second we deployed, which was very unfortunate for us. But we kept on grinding through Pureblind structures and helping out Snuff with defensive timers. It's worth mentioning that the Goon deployment wasn't necessarily to fight in Pureblind, but it was mostly to attack Snuff in Lowsec and kill all the Snuff stuff. So Snuff has been holding a bunch of faction forts and regular fortizars in Lowsec. So Goons deployed to kill those, and then we assisted Snuff on defensive timers. And it kind of spiraled from there, to be honest. It's now turned to... there was this one really big timer, the final fortizar that was Snuff owned in Lowsec in the area. And Metani pinged for the fleet and tried to get a good hype going for his coalition, basically. And then we did the same. We hyped a lot as well. We got all of our allies to come. We got FRT to show up and NC and Horde and all the people. And we managed to scare them off or fight them off the Fortizar, so that they actually didn't accomplish their goal to kill that final snuff fort. And then after that timer, both Init and Goons had like a little alliance meeting. For Goons, they usually call it Fireside. And then Init called it the State of the Alliance. And they basically announced that they were basically removing all of their assets from Cloudring and Pureblind and moving everything back into Fountain. Basically putting themselves in a much better position to fight back, right? Because it's much harder to get into Fountain than it is to get into Cloudring, which is actually strategically a very smart move, right? And now Metani had a big fireside chat on the 17th, 2 days ago, in the evening, where he was talking about. I think the recording was on Reddit. If not, I can probably link it. But basically, Metani was saying that he was getting the Casino War / World War B vibes, where it felt like a lot of people were ganging up on them for these timers versus Snuff. It was basically like everybody showing up to fight him. And then there was actually a couple of timers where Test showed up in Pureblind as well to help us even fight Init, predominantly Init. But obviously when Goons and Init fight together and Test shoots Init, then, you know. So that was something that he mentioned quite a lot. It felt like through listening to his fireside, it felt like he was kind of anticipating World War B2 or something like that to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very interesting because a lot of people got really excited about it. A lot of vets have resubbed in Goons, and it's already starting to happen on our side as well. Like a lot of people in NC Dot are like people that I haven't talked to in months and sometimes even in years. Are just like, hey, I'm hearing that World War B2 might happen soon. Is this true? And they're like, should I resub now? And I'm just like,
I'm
so things are definitely happening. It's very interesting. It's a lot of chatter at the moment. A lot of excitement. A lot of people are kind of gearing up for war, even though there's nothing concrete yet, right?
Mm-hmm.
And still people are kind of like anticipating it, expecting it to happen, like something's about to happen, basically. It's very cool.
Yeah. All propaganda aside, though, I mean, we have a couple things going on. We know that from CCP's perspective, veteran content they advertised as Q3, maybe Q4, but that was at the beginning of the COVID crisis, and we don't know how fast development is going under the COVID conditions. We're also rolling into the summer, and we're still under various restrictions depending where you are with the COVID situation, the pandemic. The people are still likely to play EVE Online throughout the summer, even though you would think, okay, summertime, people are going to get out more. Again, pandemic is affecting that, and I know in the US our numbers are rising again, unfortunately. I think it's good that there's the possibility of a conflict in the summer, because we're in a waiting pattern in terms of CCP releasing something they've advertised as good for veterans.
Well, when we plan, like I can say just from a general perspective, when we plan wars, we don't really plan them around CCP releases. Obviously, that was different with big stuff like Fazizov being released. That was obviously a game changer completely. But generally speaking, we don't really wait for CCP to release something specific to plan a war or anything like that. If it happens, it happens. And then if some big changes happen in the middle of it, that's usually exciting because it changes things up, right?
I mean, you mentioned that, but history has showed us that Dominion Sov, Fozzie Sov, has caused the entire Nullsec wars to halt. And we have two historic examples of those two Sov changes. So we have seen in the past a big change to Nullsec has caused wars to halt.
When they're being announced and when they happen, but nobody plans around that. I can tell you that. I can guarantee you that. Like, we don't sit in our room with like the PanFam leadership and be like, well, this change CCP announced could be a giant change to Zov. We should probably hold off on attacking this or that, right? Like, we don't do that. If it happens and if something is announced, like when Fazizov was announced, yes, 0-0 basically stopped having wars because everybody was prepping for Fazizov. But there was a specific announcement with details. Just because there's a rumor of CCP saying, oh, we're going to do something for the vets, that doesn't stop us from planning anything, right?
Well, I think
it's the reverse.
Both things can
be
true.
Of updates.
Yeah, both things can be true. Where you have people, there's a sit and wait to see what the mechanics do before we commit a bunch of troops to Sov that we're going to lose anyway because the mechanics work against us. That happened, I think, with Phoebe jump changes. But I can see what Kilibia is saying. You don't say like, here's an opportunity to strike because CCP is supposed to do some mechanics changes to shield. Let's go. So I think both things can be true. What I want to know from you, Killer B, is do you know why snuff was a target of the Imperium? We heard today.
Not specifically, no. I was kind of inactive over this last couple of months because I've been doing some like real life stuff. I was basically in a hospital for a long time, or I still am right now actually. But
Cool.
like the
Sorry to
basically
hear
I wasn't able to give a lot of attention to Eve basically.
Yeah, of course.
So I don't really know why snuff was being targeted now again.
Well,
maybe
we
it was
heard,
just content or something. I don't know.
no, we heard that
What-
they had, and see if this rings true, that's why I'm running it by you,
Mhm.
that they had, when they disbanded, they sold a bunch of moons to Init, but when they came back and reconstituted, they ended up attacking those moons. And that's what the fight's kind of about.
Okay, that could be.
Yeah.
I honestly
Kinda makes
honestly don't
sense.
know what started it, but somebody in chat also asked why did we help Snuff. I wasn't particularly fond of helping Snuff, right? But when it comes to NC, what's happening?
Whoa.
Oh, I guess it's
Somebody joined the channel. It happens every now and again.
so the way it usually works is in NC dot. If somebody is being attacked by goons, no matter who it is, then all the past grudges or whatever are being put aside, and you just shoot goons, right? And you end up playing with whoever is just fighting goons at the point in time. And to be fair, while I'm still anticipating Snuff to pull something, but it was not bad working with Snuff now over these timers. Like, they was very reasonable. They were very open to sharing intel and working on combined fleets and stuff like that. So the last couple of weeks, at least, working with Snuff was pleasant. It wasn't a bad experience in any way. So
Yeah. Who are you working with? Is it Haiwantu? Is he back?
yeah, Hai is doing stuff. Tao is doing stuff. Tao,
Tao.
former alliance leader of Project Mayhem. Obviously, they merged with Snuff. So Tao and Hai are doing stuff, and there's a bunch of other characters that I didn't know personally before, but they've been very active in doing stuff, and yeah, it's been a good time, And I
Started up
I
again.
kind of I kind of got the same vibes, like this conflict in Pureblind, and it kind of like started heating up, and it felt exciting. So that's why I started to do stuff again in Eve, and I started running fleets again. And I've been having a good time so far. I've been actively running fleet for like a week and a half now again, which is kind of funny doing it from a hospital. It's a very interesting with my laptop and my setup here, but it's working pretty well.
Are you still in the hospital?
It's been a fun time. Huh? Say again?
Are you still in the hospital?
Yeah, but I'm gonna get out like next week, so probably. So that's kind of cool. Can finally go home, and then I can play on proper 2 screens again and all that stuff, right?
Good for you. I think for people that don't remember, you were one of the key figures in World War B when it started. You actually convinced Pandemic Legion to do it, which probably, I don't know if it helped convince NC to do it, but it was a big, and you were a coalition, if not mega coalition FC for that conflict. So this is not unfamiliar territory to you.
Yeah, I don't think so. Back then, I have to say that like back then I was a full-time student. I didn't actually go to university at all, though. I was able to know live World War B entirely. I played basically 24/7. Whenever I needed to play, I was able to play. And I kind of know life the whole thing. I played Eve for like 16 hours a day during World War B, right? So I'm not going to be able to do that again. I don't think I want to.
You learned your lesson, yeah.
yeah, maybe. So, but I'm definitely looking forward to running fleets in EUTZ again, and just being, just doing stuff and fighting. I have really like lost my motivation to play Eve over the last couple of months. Like the entire conflict where we went after the GOTG, right? It was all run by Nidaspar, obviously, who's also one of our EUTZ FCs, and I wasn't really active doing that thing. I showed up at the end of it a bit and did like 1 or 2 structure grinds. That's it. And then I was kind of inactive again after that. And it's just now that I'm sort of getting back into Eve again, and that's cool.
Yeah. Well, it's neat.
So yeah, we'll see how things go, man. It's definitely, like I said the other day to you in the PM, I feel like things are happening and it's exciting. And whether or not things pan out, we'll see. But right now, I'm having a good time, and I think a lot of people are. So that's nice.
Oh, Headliner's in here.
I want to say, It's good that you're back, Hilla B, and it's good that you're hopefully getting out of hospital next week. Just don't overextend yourself. We like having you around.
I'm not in any danger in real life. I'm fine.
Good. Headliner, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Good. Are you guys getting busy? Pandemic Legion?
We're always busy.
It's just that nobody posts battle reports on Reddit anymore, right? Because the mods went all like high standards. But if you've been following some of the PL YouTubers, they've been having some really amazing Caracal fleets and just killing shit left and right. So I would say PL has been busy for the last couple of months.
That's our thing now, is to form Tech 1 cruiser fleets and make videos about it, and then watch everyone get annoyed.
What can you tell us about the conflict? Is something brewing that we should know about? Is there some momentum building?
I think the answer to that question is that the biggest conflict driver in this game are the people that play it. And if you think about that in the context of what's happened over the last year or so, there was one war against GOTG, or whatever they called themselves, and that wasn't great, to be honest. I caught the tail end of it, found it pretty boring, mainly because of the time zone that it occurred in. But nothing's happened since then, right? You've got two very big coalitions and one other one that's not doing much, and there are changes being put in the game by CCP, and they're starving everyone of resources and stuff like that. But other than that, everyone's sort of just looking around, wondering what, and that's why there's this conflict in Pureblind, because people have got nothing else to do. So I don't know. Like either way, I'll be around whatever happens with my Caracals.
It seems like this kind of came out of nowhere. It's almost like there's an opportunity to get better and better fights, but the Snuff versus Imperium thing kind of it didn't seem planned. It just seems like it's growing organically from the outside.
Well, so Mittani said in his fireside that they were doing this to pull us away from cash to help test, because there was like while this conflict has been going on in Pureblind between Snuff and Horde and people involved, and in LowSec, there was also a little bit of another conflict going on between Fire Coalition, who are obviously, a lot of Russians, and they are allies with Legacy, and a bit of the drone forces, right? Like Tri has been over there, Slice, PL got involved in a couple of fights. We did, obviously, whenever it was necessary, and Horde as well, right? Because drones are our turf, basically, now. So there was like this little conflict going on over there in Cash as well. And Mittani said in the fireside that they were trying to pull us away from that cash conflict so that their allies in Legacy could make better progress. So that was like one of the reasonings that he said publicly, at least, why they're doing what they're doing at the moment, or what they did. Obviously, it's just kind of funny, because every time the goons deployed against Snuff, it didn't end up to it. Last time they deployed against Snuff, it ended in World War B. And this time around, they deploy to evict Snuff from LowSec, and they end up basically forfeiting an entire region and retreating, taking down like 5 keep stars in total as well from the north, just kind of consolidating their stuff, which is like, again, I said that already, it's a smart move strategically, but it's kind of funny to think about. They like, if you look at the chain of events, like we deploy to evict Snuff from LowSec, and then like 2 months later they take down 5 keep stars, lose 1 in the process, and retreat all their stuff back to Fountain, right? So that's kind of funny.
So you do see it as them. It's a tactical retreat, yes, but you do see it as a retreat. Like their campaign didn't just come to a natural end or something.
If you ask the Mittani, he will say something different, right? And it makes, like, from both standpoints, it makes sense. Yes, from my POV, it is a retreat, because they were actively pushing against Snuff, and they were trying to defend those structures that we were attacking. But from their POV, it's just they said, okay, look, we've tried. We see that it's pointless fighting in this area where we can't properly defend ourselves because it's a shitty geography and low sec sucks, right? And they are consolidating their stuff into a more defensible position, which from there, that's like their POV, right? And that makes sense too. Yeah. So it depends who you ask really on this one.
So Zalmoexa says, come on, you know very well, make it public. What's he talking about?
I don't know. The thing is, like I said, when the Mittani, he said like he's getting World War B2 vibes again, and this move to consolidate their stuff in the Fountain, and he talked a lot about Fortress Delph, and if we want to attack them, we can do it in Fountain or in Delph, where they have all these defensive structures. They probably do know more than I do. Again, I've been inactive for the last couple of months, so usually inactive people don't get involved, right?
But you headlining?
If there's anything going on, I don't know about it. At the moment, I'm just having fun getting back into EVE and having a bunch of good fights like the one we had today.
What about it, headliner? Do you know anything that you want to divulge?
No, I'm so far removed now from the mechanics of coalitions and mega coalitions. All I do is run fleets now, right? The sun has set on me being on my career and being a mega coalition commander.
Are you following the footsteps of Shadu? Are you going to disappear one day?
No, I'd never go to Australia. That sounds like
teach how to unmute your mic and how to use a webcam.
Do you know how many species of poisonous fucking animal there are?
Yeah.
Like, I'm never going there. No, like for me, like what I do with my alliance is we'll go where the conflict is, go where it looks the hottest. So, you know, anything that ever happens, and apart from Pureblind, because I've stayed out of that for the most part, we'll be around. But in terms of,
I feel a bit like that as well, where I just back in the day I remember caring so much, right? Like X47 was the war around X47, the big Titan battles, was the last time I really cared so much. Like I really wanted to win X47, right? I really wanted to make the North be victorious. Like I wanted the North, quote unquote, to be successful and victorious in that battle. And ever since X47, it's like I've done everything there is to do in EVE, basically, in my bucket list, right? Everything I wanted to accomplish in EVE, I've done. And I'm now at the point where I don't think I care enough anymore. Not saying that I don't care about EVE or whatever, but I don't think I would have the energy in me, like I said, to play like 16 hours a day again, give up all my real life for it. It's just not like, I just want to have a good time now. I want to log in, do a fleet, fight an enemy fleet, and, you know, go home.
So the battle that you're referring to, X47, happened in 2018, so it was a while ago. And what happened there, you were winning that battle. We're talking about the armor timer. There were 3 timers at the time, and it was the second timer, the armor timer. It looked like you were slugging it out with Titans, with the Imperium, and then things went wrong. Well,
the first one we did really well. Like the first timer we did well. We just lost the battle going into USTZ because their USTZ reinforcements were much larger than ours. Because our USTZ, especially in NC. Back then, was very weak, and most of our coalitions was. So we should have just. I think the first battle we actually came out ISK even or ISK positive because we did gank a bunch of stuff in their midpoint. So the first fight was actually pretty good for us. And then the second timer where we completely got destroyed, that we just shouldn't have gone into. That was my call. And it was a bad call from my end to decide to fight there on the structure timer, because learning from the armor timer, I knew that we were going to trade even at best when it comes to Titan numbers. But this time it was the structure timer, so the Keepstar was going to die at the end of it. And also we had a bunch of aces up our sleeves in the first timer, namely the tether bug that we found like a week before X47. And some other stuff that we abused in the first fight that we knew we weren't going to be able to abuse again in the second fight because they would have, find out a way around it. So the second engagement was just bad to take, but I didn't want to stand down an entire coalition after hyping them for an entire week. Like we hyped the entire week between the 2 timers. Every day there was multiple pings and this is going to be the final battle, blah, blah, blah. And after making such a huff about it, I just didn't have it in me to just say, no, never mind, guys, we're not going to do it, right? It would have been the smarter call, but I was too, I don't know, I was too
well,
tunnel visioned.
The servers were conspiring against everybody at the same time, right? That was
the servers shit everybody, right?
Yeah, so you couldn't time things very well. People were, I think, disconnecting, reconnecting all the time. Not that that's an excuse; it was happening to everybody, but it certainly messed things up for that fight.
And that was like the last time. And if you look at my personal like fleet history or whatever as an FC, ever since X47, I've been sort of inactive. I've been there. I was around a little bit when Goons came to Glass, Tribute, and Vale. Mm-hmm. I did like a couple of fleets then when there was a good opportunity. I did one with Headliner that was really nice with Munins versus Megatrons and stuff. That was a really cool fleet. But ever since X47, I've been sort of inactive and just coming back for a couple of fleets maybe and then going inactive again. Because like I said, that was the last time I really, had all that energy focused to EVE. And ever since then, I kind of put my energy somewhere else.
After that battle, you said like, I can't really play the gameplay that I want to play because the servers can't handle it. And you were working with CCP as a CSM member to try to get that addressed. And it looks like you kind of did. But
I feel like the server performance with CCP is a bit random, right? Like sometimes they do really well for a couple of months and we have big fights and we're like, oh man, the server performance was actually really good. But now the last couple of big fights we had when we forgot to petition for the node to be reinforced or something, then performance was really bad. And I'm not just talking about there being a lot of tie-dye, I'm talking about clients being incredibly unresponsive, people disconnecting and all the usual stuff, right? So I would say that the server performance was good for a couple of months, maybe, and now it's kind of been getting worse again. I don't know why that is the case. Obviously, there's so many factors that affect the server performance that I have no idea why, but yeah, that was. I remember me saying that actually. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, you said.
But I changed my point of view on that too, because that's like I don't want X47 anymore, because those battles just aren't fun, right?
Yeah, well, not that way. I think a lot of people like saying I was there.
Yeah, it's cool. That's cool. But I can say I was there by just being a dude that presses F1 on a Titan DD and then locks off after 2 hours of disconnecting, right, and going AFK. I don't have to suffer through 12 hours of trying to keep the fleet together while everybody else just logs off when they're tired.
That's true. Like, F1
being in charge of something like that is different.
Yeah, it has it a lot easier than you. You have to be there till the end to get everybody out. But yeah, I do.
It is not a brawl worth mentioning in the grand scheme of things, but today was one of those prime examples of what I want to play EVE for nowadays, right? So for example, today, there was a Fortizar in Fate, in E9KD, that we were going to put into the final timer. It was an Armor timer, and it was at a really weird time zone. It was at like 14:28 EVE time. So I formed up Horde NNC, and I went to shoot it. I had like 80 people at the beginning, and I shot the fort and started going through its armor. Then Goons started pinging, right? And Rager Regiment started pinging. They formed fleet to come fight us. So I pinged for reinforcements. I got more people. They formed their fleets and undocked. They jumped into us and we started having a fight. It wasn't a big timer that everybody was prepping for. They didn't have an op poster or anything. For us, at the start of the fleet, I even said to the Horde and the NC people, it's like, we're just going to bash this fort. Nothing's going to happen. It's going to be completely uncontested. Blah, 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 right? Like I told them straight up, it's going to be a boring fleet, so to say. And then it turned into a really amazing fight with, they had like 170 people. I had 150 people. We had a little subcap brawl. There was a fax on grid. There was a couple of dreads. It was a really cool engagement. There was no tie-dye. Everybody had fun. That's the kind of things I want to do now. I don't want to do X47 anymore. Like I leave that to the new generation now.
All right, I'm going to get you a rocking chair. No, but I get your point. I think what's happening, and you would know better than I because you're in charge of these fleets, is that there's more mystery into what's going to happen. So it's not like you look at the players on the board and figure out what you can and can't do. Instead, there seems to be more chance of things going in different directions or more mystery to the fight. From a story perspective, when I look at EVE Online, I want to not know how the story's going to end. So the more variables there are and things that can go wrong and situations that can escalate, the better. Excuse me a second. I'll be right back.
Someone really wants to get hold of Matterall now.
You're not muted, dude. Okay.
I think the real comment.
Yeah,
here
he
is that
probably
Matterall
knew.
still has a
He now muted himself.
What's going on with that?
like landlines in 2020, guy.
Yeah, that's actually pretty amazing. I don't think I've had a landline phone for like 5 or 6 years. I can't even remember.
Yeah, my wife insists on a landline, and it's like I never answer it, but it was her, so that time I answered it.
That's how you get in trouble.
You
get in
know
trouble
who
with the
called-
government, dude.
Do you know who phones landlines? Salespeople.
Right? You should just the landline should be for the purpose of you picking it up and saying text me, and then.
Yeah. Well, it's I don't know. There's this weird. I don't want to get into landlines and whatever else, but it's just like it's so weird to have a landline these days. Seems like not the way to communicate with people anymore. It seems very antiquated. Well, cool, man. It's good to talk to you, Killer B. I'm glad you're getting out of the hospital soon. I'm glad it's not, serious or anything we have to worry about. It's good to see you back. And what's
like 100 years ago would have been serious. Back then it was like 50-50 whether you lived or not, but it was because there was no therapy, right? Nowadays it's just you get a bunch of medication and then you're fine, basically.
Is it like are you womanizing and carrying, like getting social diseases and something, sexy?
No, so they have tuberculosis, right? So that means that I can't get visitation because I'm contagious. But
tuberculosis, wow.
Yeah. I don't know how I caught that, man. Catching tuberculosis in Germany in 2020 is like, the odds of that is like equivalent to winning the lottery, right? I should have just played lotto, man, to be honest. I have no idea where I caught that or how, but it's been developing, and I got hospitalized like 6 weeks ago or something.
Wow.
But I can get released soon now because my contagious level or whatever is down to a point. Yeah, where I can just wear a mask, right? Which everybody's doing anyways because of Corona, and then I can go outside and live a pretty normal life because I'm not a danger, like I'm not a threat anymore to other people.
Well, a lot
it's dangerous around now because it does impact your lungs somewhat, and we also have this COVID thing, which also impacts the lungs.
Yeah. I'm still like when I go home, I'm still gonna stay inside as much as possible, which obviously for me is quite normal anyways. As a gamer, not like I want to go outside a lot anyways, but
it's a good thing you're needed as an FC.
Yeah. I mean, exactly.
I mean,
have you been able to work
inside with a good excuse?
Yeah.
Have you been able to work remotely from the hospital?
I've been working. No, I've been working from the laptop basically. I can do that fortunately, so I haven't actually. It doesn't impair my career or anything like that, so it's fine.
I like Team Mock here says Killer B is like Doc Holliday remastered.
I don't get that reference. Maybe I'm missing out on.
There's a movie you need to watch called what's it called? Tombstone. Watch that movie.
And then I'll get it.
And then you'll totally understand Doc Holliday.
All right, cool.
Yeah. And it's a good
movie. I have
movie.
nothing to do tonight, so that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, watch it. Oh, it's pretty good. All right. Well, it's awesome to talk to you. I better take off because real life is calling and it's going to call back.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, but it's good to see you. Headliner, good to see you too. It's always a pleasure. You crack me up, man. You don't even say a lot, but you crack me up.
I have my moments, don't
I? Yeah.
So, Matterall, what we should do is text your wife and say, while you're out, can you pick up the following items? At least we'll buy you some more time.
Right. I'll get clubbed over the head with a baguette, No, I have to start. We've been going for 2 hours now. Usually the show is like 30 minutes and stuff, but I'm glad I got a chance to talk to Killer B. I was dying to yesterday, but we went into a 3-hour Pravi therapy session and ended up working out their problems for them. I'm just kidding.
That sounds horrendous.
It's as bad as it sounded.
I listened in for like half an hour. It was pretty intense, man.
We're just like, play nice, use your words. Wait, don't use your words, because you guys are not only trolls, but you guys are somewhat bigoted, and
Oh, that's why I'm saying it was intense, right? I'm not going to go into it.
Yeah,
But
productive.
I had a good time listening, man. It was fun.
It's productive. We'll see. You only know it's productive if behavior changes and things get worked out, or if things get cleared up. Maybe it was miscommunication the whole time. I don't know. But it's interesting, because I think Pravi is... there's a lot of things stirring on down there too. But again, this northern stuff is really exciting. Looks like there's some good fights with unpredictable endings, and Sing Snuff and Imperium go at it. I mean, Snuff just is a variable all the time. They can turn on you. They can become your best friend and will put you over the top. It's interesting.
Real quick, if you're still with us, we have an event called the Galente Federation Day for the next couple days. So when you log in, you're going to be presented with login rewards. After you collect them, don't log in. Don't select your character. Click that little box in the bottom right, the little present box, and collect your other login rewards. This way you're not missing out on both sets.
Yeah. You can collect those rewards while you're logged in. You just click the little thing on the bottom of your Neocom, and you can claim when you're logged in already.
Isn't that what he just said?
Pretty much.
He said don't log in. I said it's okay if you do.
Just make sure you collect both sets. Don't just collect one set and say, "Oh, my login rewards, I can now log in and do my thing." There are 2 sets of login rewards, so remember that for the next 3 days, I believe.
All right, there's one announcement. Let me double check the... I had it up and it doesn't appear to be here anymore. Here it is. So there is an interview with CCP Ice Cream. Let me actually show you this there. So CCP Ice Cream, this is going to be an interview in Spanish. It's today at 20, I guess that's in 2000. And it is at, I wish this, I'm going to have to play this so that.
2000 Eve time?
Yeah, it's Eve Dragon.
A little under 2 hours?
Yeah, it's a little under 2 hours from now.
Oh, is it only 18? Wow. Okay, so in a couple hours. Yeah, twitch.tv, Eve Dragons, dragon spelled with a 4 instead of an A. It's a little hard to tell, but it's an interview with CCP Ice Cream. Check that out if you have a chance. And other than that, we will see you on Sunday for the Sunday Talking in Stations show, and then we'll see you next week. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We're going to send you over to Extra Squishy. How's that? So take a ride on the raid, and we will see you. I might do a special show tomorrow, but we'll see. If not, we'll see you Sunday. Take care.